All right, let's dig into the roots of the Republic, because today we're going to uncover a surprising and, frankly, a critical piece of our political inheritance.
You know, when you think of Western political thought, your mind probably jumps straight to ancient Greece, right? I mean, you picture the Parthenon, you think about all those brilliant philosophers, and for good reason. I mean, think about it. They literally gave us the vocabulary we use every single day to talk about governance. Words like democracy, aristocracy, tyranny, politics, civic virtue, the list goes on. That's a huge gift. But here's the twist, the real paradox. What if I told you that while the American founders used the Greek words, they had to fundamentally reject the Greek system to build a republic that would actually last? So let's dive in and unpack exactly why that is. Okay, so flaw number one. It all starts with the Greek concept of the state itself, something they called the polis.
And for the Greeks, the polis was, well, it was everything. It wasn't just a city or a government. It was the highest human community, the ultimate ethical authority. There was simply nothing above it. And this is where we see a massive contrast. In the Hebraic model, you have a divine law that exists above the community. That law judges everyone, even the king. But in the Greek model, the community is the highest authority. The community itself is the standard. There's no higher court of appeal.
So what's the result of that? Well, it leads to what we call statism, a total state, a state that could demand absolutely anything from the individual. Because if the polis is the ultimate moral authority, then its power is in principle unlimited.
Okay, so if the state has total authority, what does that mean for its laws? Well, that brings us right to the second major flaw, the very nature of Greek law.
The Greeks called their law nomos, and they didn't see it as some transcendent, permanent thing. No, to them, law was a human invention. It was based on custom or whatever seemed reasonable at the time. And you know what that means? It means it could be changed by a really persuasive speaker, a powerful new leader, or just a shift in public opinion. There was no anchor holding it in place.
And what happens when your laws have no anchor? You get this. Aristotle himself, one of their greatest thinkers, saw it plain as day. He observed that Greek political systems were just trapped in this constant, predictable cycle of decay. A monarchy rots into a tyranny, which gets overthrown by a democracy, which then descends into mob rule and chaos, over and over again.
The end result was just constant instability, constant collapse, because without a transcendent standard, without an unchangeable law to restrain power, constitutions were incredibly fragile. A passionate mob, an ambitious strongman, they could just rewrite the rules. And in that kind of system, raw power, not justice, always has the final say.
All right, that brings us to the third critical flaw, and this one is a biggie, the Greek concept of human dignity.
And again, the contrast with the Hebraic model is just night and day. On one hand, you have the idea of Imago Dei, that all humans are made in the image of God, which gives every single person universal dignity. But the Greek model, it was built on the idea of a natural hierarchy. They believed people are just unequal by nature. Your dignity wasn't inherent, it was based on your rational capacity and your function in society. I mean, listen to this quote from Aristotle, truly one of the greatest minds in all of history. He said, "It is clear that some are free by nature, and others are slaves, and that for these it is both advantageous and just to be slaves." Wow. And this wasn't some fringe opinion, this was a core part of their political philosophy.
And this wasn't just some abstract theory either. Just look at the reality in so-called democratic Athens. Who was actually a citizen? About 10 to 15% of the population, basically just the free males. Women, foreigners, slaves, they were all excluded. The Greek model just had no moral foundation for universal rights. It wasn't even a concept.
Okay, so let's pull all this together. What's the final verdict here? What's the big takeaway from all this? Well, the way to think about it is this. The Greeks provided some absolutely invaluable tools, but they couldn't provide the architectural framework.
The founders learned so much from them about how to analyze politics. They gave us concepts like civic virtue, public reasoning, and, as we said at the start, this amazing vocabulary. But here's the thing. Tools are not a foundation.
For all its philosophical brilliance, the Greek system simply could not teach how to build a stable system that restrains power. It was a machine that was designed to break down, to spin through that cycle of decay over and over.
So that leaves us with a huge question, right? If Greece gave us the tools, where on earth did the West find its foundation?
To solve that cycle of regimes, the West would need to recover a very different set of principles, a foundation that would be rediscovered centuries later during the Reformation. And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in our next explainer.